Today, we're gonna try to control a Commander Pro, but without using Corsair's bloated and proprietary iCue software. Stay tuned. This week's sponsor is me. If you'd like to support this channel, the best way is to pick up a t-shirt at cybercputech.com. All my t-shirts are extremely high quality and durable. These are the same shirts I wear in videos. So if you like the shirt I'm wearing, then head over to cybercputech.com and pick yourself up one today. All right, let's see if we can save some resources. In our ongoing series of the e-waste gaming PC, we have been doing everything we can to get as much bang for our buck. That's not always buying cheap hardware. In fact, some of the hardware we put in this thing was actually pretty expensive. Our goal from the beginning was to build the best gaming PC we possibly could for the lowest dollar amount. Now, I haven't actually stuck to that rule with every upgrade. In fact, water cooling the 3060 probably wasn't the best way to spend money, but it looks great. I'm sorry, but nobody can deny that. However, getting the most bang for your buck doesn't always mean spending money on anything. In fact, sometimes the way you get more bang for your buck is by eliminating bloated software running in the background. I mean, we spend tons of time debloating Windows, so why do we just accept the bloated and inefficient RGB and fan controller software that comes with most motherboards or controllers? On the e-waste gaming PC, we installed a Corsair water cooling kit, which came with a Commander Pro. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the Corsair water cooling kit, and I've said it many times before. I also love the Commander Pro. I think it's a great controller. With that said, I don't even really have that much of a problem with the iCue software. I just wanted to see if it was possible to run a Commander Pro without iCue and see how many resources we can save. Now, in my case, I'm using the RGB on the Asus motherboard as well as iCue for the Commander Pro. So between Asus Armory Crate and iCue, I have a total of 26 services running, taking up 450 megabytes of memory. That's almost half a gig that is doing nothing but controlling the fans and RGB. I mean, seriously, if you just scroll through the task manager on my system, there is service after service after service in order to perform the most mundane tasks. And that was just the services that looked recognizable. There might be more that I'm just not aware of. I think that those resources could be much better spent improving gaming performance. So that's what we're gonna try today. We're gonna try to eliminate both Asus Armory Crate and Corsair iCue. We may not get the exact same functionality, but all we're doing is controlling the fans and turning on the lights. It shouldn't take that much resources to do that. For this guide, we're using two programs. The first one is an open source program called Fan Control, and the second program we need is another open source program called OpenRGB. So let's jump on the computer and see if we can make this work. Okay, so like I said, there's two programs we're gonna need. The first one is gonna be Fan Control, and you can pick this up on GitHub. It's an open source program. This is a program I've been wanting to try for a long time. I heard about it a while ago, but unfortunately it doesn't work when iCue is running. So to download this program, what you do, go to the page on GitHub. I'll go ahead and leave a link in the description below so you can download this directly. But you go down to the side where it says releases and go ahead and click on latest. Now, what you might find is that only the source code is available for the current release, and that's all right. If that's the case, when you go to download it, just go ahead and click on releases right here and just pick the last version. We're gonna go with 1.19. And once you click on that, you can see the Fan Control zip. Go ahead and download that file there. Now, the nice thing about Fan Control is it automatically updates when you start it. So if you can't get the latest version, first time you start it, it's gonna update to the latest version anyway, so don't worry too much about it. All right, so once we have Fan Control downloaded, this isn't the only thing that we need. Obviously, we need to be able to control the Commander Pro, and for that, we're gonna need to get a plugin for Fan Control. And to get that, go ahead and click on Discussions on the GitHub page, and in Discussions, in the search bar, just type in Plugins. And then from there, go ahead and scroll through, and right here at the bottom is a plugin for the Commander Pro. So I'm gonna click on that, And I'm going to go ahead and go over to that GitHub page, and we're going to download this one as well. So from here, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to click on Releases. And then from Releases, we're going to scroll down and download the fan control commanderpro.zip. And there we go. We should be ready to set this up. Now to do that, we're going to go ahead and go into our download folder. And from here, you can see our fan control and our plugin. So we're going to right click on fan control. I'm going to hit extract all. Go ahead and hit extract. And it's going to extract this folder into your downloads folder right here. So we can close this once it opens because we just want the folder right there. And go ahead and open yourself up another file explorer window and go onto your C drive and create any folder in the root directory right here. I'm going to go ahead and create a folder called Cyber CPU, but you can name this whatever you want. Make sure you don't put it in the programs file directory. Now, the reason why we need to create a folder is because there is no installer for this program. You have to just copy the program to a place on the computer and run it directly from there. And this program is going to be automatically starting when you boot Windows once we get it all set up. So for that, we don't want a folder just sitting on our desktop. I mean, I guess you can if you want, but I'm just showing you how to do it in a little bit cleaner of a way so it doesn't take up a bunch of space in your desktop. So go ahead and create a folder in the root directory and I'll show you how to set the program up. Okay, so from here, go ahead and go into that folder, and it's really simple at this point. Just take the fan control program, drag it over, and drop it into the folder. And essentially, it's installed. Well, kind of at least. We're gonna go ahead and open it up, and then we're gonna go ahead and run the program the first time. So go ahead and click on this, and it'll give you a little warning. Go ahead and click more info and hit run anyway. And then it's gonna ask you for the user account control. Just go ahead and hit yes. And at that point, here's fan control, and it says there's a new version available, so go ahead and hit the update button. And it'll update the program, and then it should launch it again. And there we go. And now at this point, it wants to go to an assisted setup. I'm going to recommend right now that you just hit no for that. And then I'm going to go ahead and make this screen just a little bit smaller so I can actually catch it in the video capture so it's not cut off. So at this point, now that we have fan control running, go ahead and close it. And then you want to go down to your taskbar right here. Go ahead and click on the little arrow that says up and you'll see this little fan right here. Go ahead and right click and hit exit. We want to completely close the program. And at this point, we want to install the plugin for the Commander Pro. So we're going to click on plugins. We're going to go over here, open up this zip folder that has this DLL in it. We're going to drag this over and drop it into the plugins folder. Now, there's one more step that you need to do, and I didn't know this at the beginning, and it took a long time to figure it out. But go ahead and right-click on the DLL file and click on Properties. And then from there, right here at the bottom where it says Security, it says this file came from another computer and might be blocked to help protect this computer. Go ahead and click Unblock, hit Apply, and then hit OK. You should be good to go at this point. So we're going to go back into the fan control folder and we're going to run the program now. Go ahead and hit yes to the user account control and that'll fire up the program. And there we go. As you can see, we have a lot more sensors detected, and that's because the Commander Pro plugin is actually working. So go ahead and hit yes here. And then go ahead and hit close. And at this point, we need to actually set something up now. So just because it detected the controllers doesn't mean they're actually working. So at this point, what I want you to do is go over to the little setup wrench right here and go into assisted setup. Now, this is what we said no at the beginning. And the reason why I told you to say no is because I wanted to get the Commander Pro plugin installed first before we actually ran the assisted setup. If you ran the assisted setup already, that's okay. You can just run it again once you get the plugin installed. It's not going to hurt anything to do it that way. It's just kind of a waste of time. So let's get to it. Okay, so to start the assisted setup, just hit yes. And it's going to ask you which sensors you want to use. And for that, we're going to just check the stuff that's relevant to our hardware. Obviously, we're using a Commander Pro, so we don't need the plugin for the Commander Core or the Core XT. So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck those two and keep just the Commander Pro checked. And then hit the OK button. And at that point, it asks you if you want to save the configuration. Go ahead and hit yes. And then application will be refreshed. Do you want to continue? Go ahead and hit yes again. Now, what the refresh process does is it goes through and it tries to match the controller itself to the actual sensor. So it wants to take the RPM sensor and the controller and put them together so they can be associated, so it can tell which RPM goes to which control. And to do this, it also goes through and tries to figure out at what percentage power does the fan actually lose RPM? Like, does it go to 0 RPM? So it goes through and it detects all of that, and that's going to take a minute to happen. So once it finishes, it should give you an opportunity to figure out which controllers go to which fans, and I'll show you how to set that up now. Now that we have this up right here, we can determine which fan goes to which controller. So to do that, what I recommend doing is turning everything down to 0. So go ahead and turn all of these bars all the way down to 0. And from there, you should notice all the fans essentially stop, as long as your fans support 0 RPM. And then what we want to do is start at the very, very top and go ahead and start turning these up to max. So the first one's going to be fan control 1. This is the fan controller on the motherboard itself, not the Commander Pro. And I already know this one's set up to my pump, but when I max this one out, it should increase the RPM to my pump. And I don't know if you can hear that, but it definitely does. And as you can see on the little picture-in-picture right here, you should see some bubbles coming up through the reservoir because the pump is at 100%. So I can go ahead and turn that down. I'm going to turn it down to around 20% here. And then for fan control, I'm just going to rename that to pump. And now we want to go to Commander Pro channel 1. So when we turn that up, what we want to do is look and see which fan on the Commander Pro actually starts spinning. And from that, I can see that it's the first fan on my radiator. So I'm going to go ahead and call that one Rad Fan 1. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn it down, and I'm going to turn the second one up. And from that point, I can see that the next fan that starts spinning is the second fan on my radiator. So we're going to go through, call that Rad Fan 2, and then we're going to go ahead and turn it down. And then we're going to go to channel 3, and essentially we're going to continue to repeat this as we go through all of the different channels. So this one is the third one on my radiator, so we're going to call this one Rad Fan 3. And then we're going to go ahead and turn it down, and we're going to turn up channel 4. And as you can see there on channel 4, one of my case fans started up. So we're going to turn that one down and call it Case Fan 1. And then we're going to go ahead and turn the second one up, and the second case fan fired up. So from there, we're going to rename this one Case Fan 2. And that'll give us all of the different fans that we needed for the Commander Pro. And it renamed them to something that makes a little bit more sense to us. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And from that point, it asks you how you want the program itself to actually start up. So I want it to start with Windows, obviously, because if it's controlling my fans, I want it started with Windows. We definitely want it to start minimized. And then the hide the redundant speed RPM section, that's actually this section down here. And we actually can hide that now because all the RPM readings are going to be within these cards up here. So we can go ahead and hide that. And then we hit OK. Kind of cleans it up a little bit, makes it look a little bit better. And at this point, we can go ahead and we can see that there's several cards here that are grayed out. We got fan control number 2 and fan control number 3. And now these are the motherboard controlled fan controllers, and there's nothing plugged into them. So obviously they're not necessary. And also I've got the fans for the RTX 3060, but since my RTX 3060 is water cooled, the fans aren't plugged in. So these aren't going to help us out at all either. And then the last one is the 6th channel of the Commander Pro, and it didn't detect anything because honestly there's nothing plugged into it. So we can go ahead and ignore that one also. So to get rid of these cards so they don't just take up space on the program here, go ahead and go to these 3 little lines, click on that, and then where it says show hidden cards, go ahead and uncheck that, and it'll hide those. So we only have the cards that we actually see available to us. Okay, so now that we have all the different fans and pumps and whatnot detected, we need to actually do something with them. And that's what we're going to do next. Let me show you. Okay, this is the section that makes this program so cool. It's the control it gives you over all of your different fans. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create some curves that these fans will actually follow. So go ahead and hit the plus button right here, and we're just going to set up some basic linear curves. You can kind of go around and play around with some of these other options if you want, but for the sake of this video, we're just going to set up some linear curves. So we click on that, and the first one, let's call this one CPU, because we're going to base it off the CPU temperature. So for the temperature source, we want to pick the core temperature for the Ryzen that I have in this system. And then from there, we can see that we're currently running at 39.5 degrees Celsius. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the minimum temperature, say I don't want it to go below 30. And then the maximum temperature, yeah, 70 is good, but you can change this to whatever you want. Now the minimum fan speed, I'm going to go ahead and let that go all the way down to 0. And then for the maximum speed, I'm going to let it go to 100. And this is really customizable with response time, as well as the amount of degrees that the temperature has to change before it actually triggers a change within the system itself. This is a really, really good program, and it's really highly customizable. So now that we have this set up, we want to go ahead and apply the CPU curve to some of our fans. So what I'm going to do is the CPU ones, I'm going to go ahead and apply those to all of my radiator fans. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and turn this on, and then I'm going to select the CPU curve from the drop-down list. And then once I do that, you'll see the RPMs, right now we're sitting at 50%, and it dropped it down to, it looks like, right around 20%. So it did lower the RPMs of the fan. But as the temperature rises, it will go ahead and raise the RPMs of the fan in order to keep the CPU cool. So now we're gonna go ahead and create another curve now. And for this curve, I'm gonna call this one a GPU curve. And then from the GPU curve, obviously we want to take our temperature from the GPU. So we're going to go ahead and select the GPU there. And then for minimum temperature, it has it at 35 Celsius and max is 70. And you know what? I'm happy with those temperatures. Let's go ahead and leave it there. And then for minimum speed, I'm going to go down to 0. And maximum speed, I'm going to change that to 100. And then what I'm going to apply this to is the case fans. Now, in this case, my GPU is water cooled, so the case fans aren't really going to affect the temperature of the CPU that much. However, if you have a water cooled GPU, this really could help keep the temps down on your GPU. So we're going to go ahead and turn this on, and I'm going to select GPU from both of the curve selections here. And then that should, because the GPU is currently at 35C and our minimum temperature is 35C, it should shut down the fans on the case completely. And it sure did. Now for the next curve, I'm gonna go ahead and hit here. We're gonna make another linear curve, and this one's gonna be for my water pump. So I'm just gonna go ahead and call this one pump. And then for the temperature source, I'm going to use this one for the core temperature for the CPU. And then what I want to make sure, the reason why I'm doing this one right here is 35 and 70 is fine. I'm not going to go ahead and play with the temps at all. You understand the concept of changing the temperatures, but the reason why I want to make a special curve just for my pump is because I don't want my minimum speed to ever drop below 20%. So I'm going to set the minimum speed to 20 and then the maximum speed to 100. And then this way, the fans, they will drop to 0, but I don't want my pump shutting off completely. I want water to continue to circulate. So for that, I'm gonna go up here, I'm gonna turn on the curve, and I'm gonna tell this one, I want this one to be the pump. And at that point, since my lowest temperature is 35, and right now my temperature is currently running at 40C, my pump is sitting at about 30%. So as you can see, this fan control software is far superior to iCue, and actually for that matter, most fan control software on the market. This software is amazing. You're just gonna have to play with it to be able to really see the power of what you can do with this program, especially all the different types of curves that you can make. I just did linear curves on mine just to kind of show you how the program works, but there's a lot you can do with this program. Definitely play around with it and tell me what kind of things you've been able to figure out with it in the comments below. Now, fans are not the only thing the Corsair Commander Pro does. It also controls the RGB. So we need a way to turn on the lights. And for that, we're gonna use OpenRGB. But I warned you ahead of time, this wasn't pretty, but it works, kind of. Yeah, let me just show you. Now, this program, I was able to get it to work, but it's definitely not tailored for the Commander Pro, that's for sure. But we're gonna go ahead and scroll down here, and we're gonna go all the way down to the bottom where we can get the downloads. Now, the nice thing about this program is it's multi-platform. You can run it on essentially anything. You can run it on Windows, Linux, or Mac OS, which honestly, I wasn't aware that a lot of people run RGB on Mac OS, but if you do, it's got you covered, that's for sure. So we're gonna go ahead and click on Windows 64-bit. We're gonna download that. And then once it downloads, we're gonna go ahead and open it into our downloads folder. And from here, we're gonna do the same thing. Just like fan control, this program doesn't have an installer. So we have to actually just throw it into a folder. So for that, I'm gonna go ahead and open up our File Explorer. I'm gonna open our C drive and go into the same folder that we put fan control in. And from there, we're going to go ahead and open up this zip file. And then from the zip file, you'll have a folder here called OpenRGB Windows 64-bit. We're going to grab it, drag it over, and drop it into this folder here. It's going to take a minute to copy over, and there it is. And from there, we're going to go ahead and open this up, and here's where things get interesting. All right, so what I want you to do is the very first time you open OpenRGB, I want you to right-click and hit Open as Administrator. And then the reason why you need to do this is because when you first open OpenRGB, it has to go through and detect all the RGB controllers that you have, and it does that best as administrator. In fact, in my case, when I didn't do that, it didn't detect the motherboard RGB controller. So hopefully that's a good tip there. And then at this point, we need to resize the zones itself. It cannot detect how many LEDs are on the Commander Pro. I don't know why, it's just the way it is. So what we need to do is, unless you know specifically how many LEDs you have inside of your Commander Pro on each channel, then you need to just guess. So for me, I'm just going to say we have 10 LEDs on each one. I know we don't. I know we have more than that. But we're just going to say 10 just for the sake of argument. So we're going to go ahead and hit save just to skip past that part. All right, and there we go. We have the Asus RGB controller detected as well as the Commander Pro detected. And at this point, go ahead and just close the program. And now we're going to go ahead and open the program like regular, not as administrator. And then we'll start playing around with some of the settings here. All right, once it fires up, it forgot how many LEDs were in the zone. This is actually a problem that is going to resurface quite a bit while we're configuring this. And you know what? It is what it is. We're just going to go ahead and hit 10 again. And we're going to hit save and close. And here we go. All right, so from the Commander Pro, we need to figure out how many LEDs are on each channel. So to do that, when it's set to all zones, we're going to go ahead and change it down to channel 1. And we're going to want to change it to a contrasting color to what we currently have. Currently, all of my RGB is set to blue. So what we're going to do is we're going to set it to white. So we click on white, and as you can see, we got some LEDs on our reservoir lit up, but doesn't look like we have anything in our CPU block. The first channel on my controller is just the reservoir and CPU block. So we're gonna go ahead and hit resize, and I'm gonna change this to 20 right here. We're gonna hit OK, and we're gonna hit white again. And from there, hey, we got some white in our CPU block now. However, I do see some blue up top. So we're gonna go ahead and hit resize again. Now, I happen to know for a fact that I have 26 LEDs in my first channel. So if I hit 26, hit OK, and then push white again. There we go, all the blue is gone. So we definitely have the first channel done, and as you can see, OpenRGB crashed. And this is also gonna be another thing that's gonna happen a lot. So go ahead and open the program back up again, and we'll move on from there. And hey, it opened up this time and it remembered how many LEDs were in channel 1. That's pretty good. Okay, so we have 26. Make sure you make a note of this because you're gonna need this later because it's going to forget how many LEDs are on the Commander Pro. I have no way to fix that. It's just the way it is. So go ahead and write this down that on channel 1, you have 26 LEDs. And then from there, now we want to move on to channel 2. So we're going to go ahead and hit resize. Now, we set it at 10 originally, so let's see what happens. We're going to go ahead and hit white, and as you can see, we actually turned the hub to one of the fans white. The second channel on my Commander Pro controls my fans and my GPU block. So there's going to be considerably more LEDs in this channel. So what we're going to want to do is that I'm just going to jump from 10 all the way up to 50 because I know there's at least 50. So we're going to hit OK and then hit white again. And it looks like we got almost 2 fans. So from there, I'm going to go ahead and hit resize again. And hey, if 50 didn't do it, hey, maybe 100 will do it. So we're going to go all the way to 100. Hit OK, hit white again. And as you can see, we definitely got most of the fans. It looks like I've got like 1 or 2 LEDs on the fans that are still blue. So we're going to hit resize and we're going to go to, let's just go to 110 and see what happens. And from there, we're going to go ahead and hit white. And look at that. We got almost everything white, except as you can see, we have one little lonely blue LED right at the end of the GPU right there. So obviously we have 111 LEDs on channel 2. So we're going to change that. We're going to hit white and the program crashed. Of course it did, because why wouldn't it? So we're going to go ahead and open it up again, but we know that 111 looks like it fits with channel 2. So now that it's open, we're gonna go ahead and click on the Commander Pro again, go over to channel 2, hit resize, it's already at 111. We're gonna hit white again, and there goes that little blue LED. So we're good to go now. So now that we've gotten to that point, we're gonna go ahead and click all zones. And at this point, you can pick whatever color you want. In fact, I'm gonna switch mine all the way back to blue, and the program crashed again. We're gonna go ahead and open it again. Wait, we at least got half of the LEDs to change. That's all right. And look at that. It forgot how many LEDs were in the zones again. But that's okay because we took notes. We know that channel 1 is 26 LEDs and channel 2 is 111. Now, go ahead and hit save. Now you understand my frustration and how much my patience was going away as I was trying to figure out how to do this. Wasn't fun. Okay, so now at this point, let's see if we can get it to change all the colors again. We're gonna hit blue again, and all right, that time it worked. We got all blue. All right, so this will allow you to change the colors while you're in Windows. However, you need to open this program every time you wanna do that. And you know, I wanna try to avoid opening this program whenever possible because this program drives me nuts. So what I want you to do is go ahead and click on the specific controller that you want to change. We're gonna do the Commander Pro here. And right here where it says mode, change the mode from direct to static. And then from static, go ahead and pick your color. I'm gonna go ahead and pick green because some of the people who watch these videos don't like my blue. So we're gonna do green for a minute. And then we're gonna go ahead and click apply colors to selection. And that should change channel 1 and channel 2 on the Corsair to green. However, as you can see, I still have a couple blue fans in there. And that's because those are controlled off my motherboard. So we're gonna go ahead and click on my motherboard. And on that one, we're gonna go ahead and hit green. And there we go, we have all green now. Now at this point, you can close the program and just ignore it because the LEDs will stay green from this point forward. They'll even stay green during a reboot. So as little as you can open this program as possible would definitely save your sanity quite a bit. So as you can see, it's definitely possible to remove proprietary fan and RGB controller software. Like I said at the beginning though, we definitely don't have the same functionality with our RGB controller, but I think we have much better functionality with our fan controller at a fraction of the resources. We went from 26 services to 1, and that single service only uses about 30 megs of RAM. That's a 420 megabyte gain and the elimination of 25 services. In regards to the fan controller, fan control is far superior than iCue. I mean, it's genuinely an upgrade. The control you get on how you want to configure your fans is absolutely amazing. I just want to warn you though, that fan control does not work if you have iCue running in the background. So if you want to take advantage of this amazing piece of software, you're gonna have to get rid of iCue. And since we're not running iCue, we need a way to control the RGB. Unfortunately with that, we definitely don't have a perfect solution. OpenRGB works, but it doesn't work great, as you can see. It took me several days and tons of trial and error just to get it to work at all. Then, when I did get it to work, it would randomly crash for no apparent reason, and it would repeatedly forget the size of the zones on the Corsair Commander Pro. In fact, I had to set the size of the zones about 90% of the time when opening the app. So just make sure you remember how many LEDs are on each channel, or you're gonna have to go through the process of figuring it out again. Seriously, write it down. Now, you know what? Because of these issues, it's pointless having OpenRGB set your lighting profile at startup because chances are it has forgotten the size of your zones on both channels of the Commander Pro anyway, and if that happens, it simply won't set the profile. In fact, what's worse is it corrupts the profile every time it forgets the size of the zones. So not only do you have to reset the zone size, but you have to go through and recreate all the saved profiles as well. I don't know whether to blame the functionality problems on the developers of OpenRGB or the Commander Pro. OpenRGB worked right out of the box with the onboard RGB controller on the Asus motherboard. Most of the problems that I faced had to do with the Commander Pro. However, there were a few issues that I think were more related to OpenRGB. But you know what? To be fair, OpenRGB is still under development, so it's likely to have issues. It does the job, but just not efficiently or reliably. Luckily though, if you followed this guide and made sure to set the Commander Pro to a static profile, it should remember that each time you boot the system up. So there's really no reason to mess with OpenRGB after you set your initial profile. Just use it to change the colors of your RGB and then don't ever worry about the program again unless you want to change something. Now, this guide can only cover what it can cover. I use an Asus motherboard and a Commander Pro. If you use different RGB controllers, then you might have better luck than me, or you might have worse luck than me. You'll have to play around with your specific device to see if you can make it work. In fact, if you're able to make this method work with a different controller, then definitely share it in the comments below. I'm curious what other devices I can use these programs for as well. But with that said, I think we definitely got the best bang for our buck by eliminating that stupid proprietary fan and RGB software. However, if you'd like to see how not to get the best bang for your buck, then check out this video where I water cooled the 3060 in this computer. It may not have given us the performance we wanted, but it sure looks cool. In fact, I might keep the green. I kind of like that too. Have a great day.